Hey guys, so I am now in the fifth part of the Sengoku Jidai series by Kings and Generals. Link to this video is down in the description down below, and if you enjoy my channel, my content, and you want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, and subscribe, and maybe even consider joining Patreon. And, becoming a member. That would really help me out a lot. Now, with that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's watch the fifth part of this amazing series. Kings and Generals never disappoints. I've yet to ever see a bad Kings and Generals video.
We return our focus to Hideyoshi, who, after spending some time with his family in early 1582, marched again to the front, subjugating...
Look at how much influence he is spreading. He has all of this upper part under the banner, the influence of his clan, or his lord's clan rather. I mean, I guess you could say his clan is a part of it, but point is, he is like, oh my goodness, oh my.
The island province of Oweji in just 20 days, he moved towards his main goal, Bichu province. There, not far from the border, he would encounter his first obstacle, the castle of Takamatsu, which Shimizu Muneharu held. As in previous times, Hideyoshi initially offered a diplomatic solution, enticing Muneharu to switch sides in exchange for lordship over all of Bichu province. While the offer was extremely good, Muneharu remained loyal to his Mori overlord. The siege would not be easy, as the castle was located advantageously on a small hill that was surrounded by completely flat terrain. The river Ashimori that flowed to the west and a large moat also contributed to the fortress's defenses. But Hideyoshi was a master of siegecraft and would turn the castle's advantages into his own. Thus, he filled large bags with sand and raised a large bank on the south side of the castle, while also digging a channel to divert the water from the river towards Takamatsu. As the rainy season arrived in June, the water created an artificial lake around the castle, cutting it off from the outside world.
Wait, let me get that again. Whoa.
Bank on the south side of the castle, while also digging a channel to divert the water from the river towards Takamatsu. As the rainy season arrived in June, the water created an artificial lake around the castle, cutting it off from the outside world. The flooding plan had worked, and the castle was hardly inhabitable.
This guy's Kings and Generals mentioned last video, his skill in siegecraft is exceptional. It really is, though. You know what it kind of reminds me? It reminds me of like when Agrippa needed, the whole invading like Sicily plan that Augustus needed to do against Pompey's son, and so he created just a lake to train a navy. Like, the ingenuity. I knew I was right to keep my eyes on Yoshi right here, bro, because Hideyoshi. But I'm calling him Yoshi for short. Also, I just like Yoshi. Kind of reminds me of Mario. But I knew I was right to keep my eye on him. I was like, this guy's gonna be a star, and like, I'm so far being proven right. This man's on a roll. He's just he's too good.
So the garrison of Takamatsu sought outside help. The threat Hideyoshi posed was deemed big enough for Mori Teramoto to intervene by personally leading a relief force. Upon hearing this, Hideyoshi sent a messenger to Oda Nobunaga in Kyoto to request reinforcement for the upcoming and possibly decisive battle against the Mori. After spending several days with Nobunaga, Ieyasu and his entourage had departed to continue their tour of Kansai, while Nobunaga received Hideyoshi's request for aid. In late June, and after urgently gathering his personal guard, Nobunaga left the safety of Azuchi and rode to Kyoto, accompanied by his eldest son and heir, Nobutada. With him was also his African bodyguard, Yesuke. The young man had first arrived in Japan in 1579 and met with the Oda warlord in Kyoto in 1581. Impressed by the man's physical strength and his color, which had caused quite the sensation among the citizens of the capital, Nobunaga took him into his service. It is
Wow, very progressive. That's so interesting. You know, I had heard offhandedly that there was like a black samurai, and I never looked into it, but like I think it was just popped up in some random video I was looking up, and I was like, oh, really interesting. But like I'm like almost like being reminded. I'm not sure if this is the guy or any of it, you know, but like I kind of have a memory of it. That's really cool. Um, wow, they're definitely interesting to see that.
Possible he even made him a samurai, as well as his weapons bearer, and was the one to give him his Japanese name.
Wow.
When Nobunaga and his small party reached Kyoto, he decided to stop and spend the night at Honnoji Temple, which was his favorite place to take lodgings whenever he visited the capital. However, the majority of his troops, as well as his son, were billeted in a separate location. Meanwhile, in the nearby Sakamoto Castle, Nobunaga's general, Akechi Mitsuhide, had gathered his forces in order to assist Hideyoshi, as he had been commanded by his lord earlier. On the afternoon of the 20th of June, he departed from Sakamoto and led his troops as far as the Katsura River. There he ordered his men to halt, and addressed them with one phrase that would change the fate of Japan forever. "The enemy is at Honnoji," he proclaimed, and with that, he turned his army around and marched towards Kyoto and the unsuspecting Nobunaga. Before the sun had risen, Mitsuhide's men, under the command of his son-in-law, stormed the temple where Nobunaga was residing.
Oh, that was wild. Talk about a heel turn. Oh, dude, is no. Okay, wait. I'm sorry. Let me pop up my Nobunaga. Is Nobunaga gonna die right now, bro? Oh, if he dies like this, that's gonna be like wild. Hideyoshi's gonna have to turn around and. But then again, he's basically started his war with the Mori, right? Like if he leaves that.
The daimyo was awoken by the sounds, thinking a brawl between his own men had broken out, but he was soon informed that it was an enemy force that had surrounded the temple. Nobunaga asked who had plotted against him, and his page, Mori Ranmaru, told him that these men belonged to Akechi Mitsuhide. Nobunaga stoically replied that what's done is done, and went to grab his bow, while his guards struggled to fight off their assailants.
It is what it is. That he really just said that right now. Like, you just gotta accept it and try to go. But my goodness, bro. Oh, dude, I'm worried about his life.
Nobunaga shot a few arrows at his would-be assassins until the string of the bow snapped, and he switched to a spear. Ordering his women to escape, he continued to fight until he sustained a spear wound in his elbow. Realizing there was no escape, he ordered Ranmaru and his brothers to set the complex aflame to prevent Mitsuhide from taking his body, and retired to one of the inner rooms to commit seppuku.
Oh, that's so tragic. Wow. Just when everything was going I tell you guys, it happens in real life all the time. Whenever things go good for me, life usually then does a complete 180 and hits me down. I don't know if this is just me in my life, but like when things are going well in life, I'm like, I get a little nervous because I'm like, it happened last year. Last year, 2025, it started off good, and then in April, it plummeted, and the rest of the year was not good for me. So, like, I'm just saying, like, I got a few good months at least. But, like, whenever things go good in my life, something bad instantly happens. And, like, I think a part of me was like, maybe that's just me. Maybe I just have, like, the worst misfortune. But it happens all the time in history, too. All these videos make me feel validated, vindicated. Because anytime things are going well for any of these, like, guys and leaders, a 180 usually happens and everything falls apart. I guess that's just life, dude. That's just the wheel of fortune, you know? Some people have more fortune than others, but I think there's always gonna be like a drop at one point. Wow.
Another figure that also likely perished in the flames of Honnoji was Nobunaga's first wife, Nohime. According to legend, she died while fighting off the attackers with her naginata, but there are also theories that she somehow managed to escape. Among those who fought loyally to protect their master's life was Yasuke. However, with Nobunaga's fate sealed, the African warrior had no choice but to escape the burning temple and make his way to Nijo-Gosho, where Nobutada had made his quarters and was under attack by Akechi's men as well. Nobutada had planned to spend the night at Myokekoji until news of his father reached him. He originally wanted to make his way to Honnoji and assist him, but his retainers informed him that it was already too late, and the most prudent course of action was to head to Nijo-Gosho, which had stronger defenses. There, once again, his retainers tried to convince him to escape the city and head for Azuchi. But Nobutada had made up his mind, stating that those who planned a revolt of such magnitude would not let him live, and he could not stand the shame of being captured by common foot soldiers. His speech moved his few retainers, who decided to stay at the castle and fight. They put up a stalwart defense at the gate, but after a while, some of Akechi's soldiers climbed onto the roof of a nearby building, and being able to see the defenders over the walls, they began picking them off with bows and firearms. Each casualty was irreplaceable, and soon Mitsuhide's men breached the gate and set the castle ablaze. Nobutada retired, and he too took his life, after ordering one of his retainers to hide his body. Yasuke was brought before Akechi, who declared that he would spare him because he was just an animal. It is possible that
Holy crap. Holy crap. This guy is odd one. Wow. Good to know I would survive in Japan if I were there. Like, in this era, I mean, you know? They'd be like, hey, look at this animal. She's like, yeah, bro. Yeah, let me loose, bro. Let me get out of here. But yeah, Yasuke doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would... I mean, I don't know what's about to happen, but like, I imagine he's not happy that his master just got betrayed and murdered. Like, either he's gonna try to do something, or if he actually does just leave and never come back, I mean, that would also be incredibly smart. But, you know, I have a feeling, and this is just speculation that I'm about to see, I feel like he's not happy and probably would want some type of vengeance, right?
These harsh words did not reflect his true feelings towards Yasuke, and instead he sought to spare the man's life by insulting him in such a way, possibly to avoid problems with the Jesuits. Following this, Nobunaga's former African page was returned to the custody of the Jesuits, who had brought him to Japan, and from then on, he vanished from history.
Never mind, he's not gonna do anything. Okay, that's interesting though. Said that insult to actually spare him. Alright, that's like, I guess what the trope is, kick a dog moment. Or pet the dog, I forgot the trope. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just... Dang, dude. That was wild. That all happened so quick that even, like, my mind is still processing what I just witnessed. Just everything fell apart so quickly.
In just one fateful night, Akechi Mitsuhide had managed to deliver a devastating blow to the entire Oda clan, and threatened to undo everything Nobunaga had achieved by that point. That same day, he marched from Kyoto to Azuchi, but he was unable to find the remaining Oda family members, who had already fled. He was content with looting the treasures Nobunaga had collected there. In the aftermath, the mighty fortress was burned to the ground, with sources attributing this cultural tragedy to various culprits. At that time, Ieyasu was also in the vicinity, albeit with only a handful of retainers accompanying him, as Nobunaga had invited him to a tour of Kansai to celebrate their victory over the Takeda. Ieyasu was staying at the port city of Sakai when word of Mitsuhide's betrayal got to him. He contemplated a direct attack on Mitsuhide with his small band of retainers to avenge Nobunaga's death. He even thought of committing seppuku to follow his senior ally and friend to the grave.
Dang.
Thankfully, however, he was persuaded by his men that it would be better to escape back to the safety of Mikawa, gather an army, and then avenge Nobunaga's death. The escape was not an easy one, as Mitsuhide's men were searching for them, and the area was filled with bandits. By bribing and at other times intimidating their adversaries, they managed to reach Iga province, where the knowledge of Hattori Hanzo, a native of Iga, came in handy. As many of the Igaji samurai were positively predisposed towards the Tokugawa clan, they helped Ieyasu and his party and safely escorted them to the port of Shirako, where they boarded a merchant ship heading for the safety of Mikawa. The flames of Honnoji had thrown not just the Oda clan, but the entire country off balance. By a stroke of luck, Hideyoshi intercepted a messenger that Mitsuhide sent to Teramoto to forge an alliance. Informed of Nobunaga's passing and the power vacuum that had occurred in the Gulf of the Oda clan, Hideyoshi moved quickly and decisively. He hastily concluded a peace treaty with the Mori on seemingly good terms for them. They had to surrender the provinces of Mimisake, Bichu and Hoki, lands that were essentially already controlled by the Oda. Unaware of the events surrounding Honnoji, Teramoto agreed, and Hideyoshi force-marched his army, covering the distance from Takamatsu to Kyoto in just 5 days.
Yeah, Hideyoshi, dude wasn't gonna just not do anything. I was wondering what his reaction to all this. It seems like he's gonna go and try to get the power, you know? So I imagine he's gonna succeed because he's very competent. But yeah, the whole Oda situation, bro, that was the most shocking moment of this entire series to me so far.
Akechi, probably unaware of Hideyoshi marching towards him at warp speed, did little to fortify his position. He tried to gather the support of Kyoto's citizens by reducing taxes, and even secured the gratitude and support of the imperial court. The only problem was that the emperor at that time had no authority. Mitsuhide also extended a hand of friendship towards other former Oda allies, like the Chosokabe, Hosokawa, Takayama, Nakagawa, and Tsutsui clans, with no success. Chosokabe Motochika was too far to intervene, not to mention embroiled in his own campaigns in Shikoku. Takayama Ukon and Nakagawa Kiyohide sided with Hideyoshi, while Tsutsui Junkei stayed out of the conflict. The Hosokawa, despite their family ties with Akechi, were staunch Oda loyalists. In fact, Hosokawa Tadaoki, Mitsuhide's son-in-law, was so appalled by this betrayal that he immediately divorced his wife. His father, Hosokawa Fujitaka, opted to turn to a monastic life and became a Buddhist monk. Akechi Mitsuhide would have to face Hideyoshi without allies.
Yeah, bro, what did you expect? What you did was wild. That's red wedding levels of just... even then, I was, shocked right there. That I'm still, inside, I'm still not over what happened. Because it was a lot, dude. Just, you really think you were gonna do that? And then, especially with how a lot of honor seems to be a big part of a lot of these people's, mindset. You know what I mean? What he did was so unhonorable. I'd be surprised if many even, okay, sure, we're cool with you now. You've shown yourself to be not a good person or trustworthy. And not smart either, trying to incur favor with the Imperials, they literally have no power. I don't know. Hideyoshi is gonna, he's the karma coming for you, bro.
At the Hashiba camp, the outgoing and silver-tongued Hideyoshi had no shortage of allies. Just as his troops were passing outside Osaka, they were joined by Niwa Nagahide, another great general of the Oda clan, and Oda Nobutaka, Nobunaga's third son. They were stationed at Sakai, making preparations to invade Shikoku when the events of Honnoji occurred. For Hideyoshi, having Nobutaka on his side was a big advantage, as Nobunaga's son added legitimacy to his cause. The stage was set for the two rivals to clash when the two armies met near the village of Yamazaki, an area advantageous for Akechi's smaller army, as the nearby rivers and castles would prevent envelopment maneuvers from Hideyoshi's larger corps. Upon reaching the area of the battlefield, Hideyoshi realized that the key to victory was the nearby forested hill of Tenozan that overlooked the road to Kyoto. For that reason, he dispatched a regiment under Nakagawa Kiyohide with the mission to secure it, which he did without any difficulties, thus giving Hideyoshi and his army the advantage of high ground. That same night, he also...
It's over! He has the high ground!
Also sent a group of shinobi into Mitsuhide's camp. The ninjas lit fires in huts and other buildings where Akechi's men were spending the night, causing much confusion among the troops and lowering their morale. The following morning, Hideyoshi deployed his troops behind the bank of the river Enmyojigawa, opposite Mitsuhide's forces, with Takeyama Ukon and Hori Hidemasa leading the vanguard. The battle began with Mitsuhide's forces charging forward, the hill of Tenozan becoming a highly contested point. Matsuda Masachika and Nabika Kamon tried to wrestle control of the mount from Hideyoshi's troops, but came under heavy fire from the latter's arquebusiers. With Tenozan firmly under his control, Hideyoshi felt confident enough to launch his counterattack, ordering forces on his right flank, under the command of Ikeda Tsuneyoki and Kato Mitsuyasu, to cross the river and charge Suda Nobuharu.
Dang. Man, this kind of reminds me of like a battle I had when I was playing Total War. Like, I invaded Rhodes against a faction, which was known as Knossos, the Knossos. I'm not sure if the K is silent, so I say Knossos, but point is, literally, biggest battle I've ever had in playing Total War, and just, they had the high ground. They immediately rushed to get the high ground, and then I had to fight them, and dude, it is hard fighting against an enemy. Like, I was playing as the Seleucids, right? Just a giant pike wall, and then just, they had a bunch of pikes just fighting, cavalry all over the place, war elephants. I almost lost too at several points. If it wasn't for my reserves of war elephants I kept throwing, I had like 4 reserves of 4 units of war elephants I just unleashed upon them, because despite having like elite troops, like the most expensive, like Silver Shield Pikemen and Silver Shield Swordsmen and Shield Bearers, like they were like doing heavy damage, and my pike lines were running beyond thin, and like the sides were breaking. Like I managed to win the cavalry battle thanks to my 8 Azad Knights, so I managed to then unleash attacks upon them, and again, my war elephants came in clutch. But man, like the setting is almost identical to this. I was on the attacking the front, except minus the stream. There's no stream, but it was the largest battle I ever had in Total War, and again, like I did not walk out of that unscathed. So I'm having some memories there. I won though, but I don't get an impression that these rebels, traitors, are going to win, but
Haru's corps. Despite facing stiff resistance, they managed to push and slowly turn towards the center of Mitsuhide's formation. At that point, Hideyoshi also committed his left wing to the fierce melee. This proved to be too much for the Akechi forces, who broke ranks and began routing in large numbers. Watching the armies collapse, Mimaki Kaniaki sent a messenger to Mitsuhide, urging him to flee to safety, while he and 200 of his men tried to buy some time by charging the lines of Hashiba's troops. With no choice left, Mitsuhide initially retreated to Shoryuji Castle, but understanding that he would be surrounded and would not last long in this position, he attempted to flee during the night, with only 20 of his most trusted men escorting him. His goal was to reach his very own Sakamoto Castle, but he wouldn't make it past the village of Ogorisu. There, while crossing a bamboo grove, he was ambushed by a band of peasants, with the villager wounding him at his side with a bamboo spear. Drawing his last breaths, Akechi Mitsuhide committed suicide, with his head...
Yeah, very, how do you say, it's a fitting end, honestly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but, a very fitting end for him to kind of go out in that very unglorious way. Like I said, karma came back hard for that guy, and rightfully so. Like, you know? So yeah, unglorious, good end.
Later being recovered and given to Hideyoshi, who in turn brought it to Honnoji, presented it to Nobunaga's spirit, and then placed it on a spike for the people of Kyoto to see, the fate of a common criminal. Akechi's 11-day rule was over, but for Hashiba Hideyoshi to rule the land, he would first need to elevate himself above the rest of the Oda generals and Nobunaga's sons. While the prestige of being the one to defeat the traitor Mitsuhide was a significant boost, it was not enough. At the same time, Ieyasu had turned his gaze towards the east, and especially the recently conquered lands of Kai and Shinano that just a few months ago belonged to the Takeda clan. With the ultimate defeat of Katsuyori, the lands passed to Oda control. Thereafter, Nobunaga appointed Hidetaka Kawajiri to rule most of Kai, Nageyoshi Mori the majority of Shinano, and Kazumasu Takigawa the entirety of Kozuke. Ieyasu rightfully suspected that the samurai of these provinces had little loyalty for their new masters, and Nobunaga's death would provide the perfect opportunity for them to rebel against Oda rule, establish their own domains, or perhaps invite powerful neighboring clans like the Uesugi and the Hojo to claim a slice of the pie. To prevent this from happening, Ieyasu reached out to many former Takeda vassals, amongst them Yoda Nobushige in Seku, instructing him to gather as many troops and allies as possible. After gathering around 900 warriors, Nobushige occupied Komoro Castle.
Dang.
On June 29th, he sent Honda Nobutoshi to Kawajiri Hidetaka to secure his cooperation as well. Hidetaka was facing an uprising in his lands at the time, so Nobutoshi told him that Ieyasu was offering safe passage through his lands in case he wanted to retreat to Mino or Kyoto. This was an offer which probably offended Hidetaka, who recognized that Ieyasu was eyeing Oda territory. 4 days later, Hidetaka got Nobutoshi drunk and proceeded to murder him. Ieyasu would have probably exacted his revenge on the man, but fate had other plans. On the 7th of July, Hidetaka attempted to slip out of Kai with a small group of his retainers, but he was captured by the rebels and was put to death. By that time, Kai was not only host to rebels and Oda samurai, but also to Hojo troops. On the last day of June, Hojo Ujimasa, having learned of Nobunaga's death at the hands of Mitsuhide, mobilized his forces and marched to claim the former Takeda lands on the pretext of preventing a Tokugawa invasion. Within 3 days, they had captured Iwadono Castle in Kai and installed Watanabe Shozemon as lord of the area. At the same time, Sanada Masayuki, who was at that time in service to the Uesugi, attacked Numata Castle, which belonged to Kazumasu Takigawa's sphere of control. Kazumasu had already defended the castle when Fujita Nobuyoshi laid siege to the 4,000-strong garrison of Numata that was commanded by Kazumasu's nephew, Takigawa Masushige. However, when Nobuyoshi had failed, Masayuki succeeded, and the castle was handed over to the Sanada. Troubles for Kazumasu were far from over, and 3 days later, Hojo Ujiyasu and Ujinao had arrived at his doorstep with around 50,000 men. Kazumasu rallied his own 18,000 and met the Hojo army near the border between Kozuke and Musashi provinces at Kanegawa. In the first days of the conflict, the Takegawa forces enjoyed some success in minor skirmishes, managing to capture Kanekubo and Kawai castles. On the 8th, it was time for the big showdown. Once again, the battle began favorably for the Takegawa troops, as with only 3,000 men, Kazumasu was able to repel Ujinao's 20,000.
Oh,
Seeing
wow.
this, Ujinori attempted to flank the Takegawa positions with his own 10,000-strong regiment. However, his subordinate generals moved without cohesion and became easy prey for Kazumasu, who charged their lines and turned them back. For a moment, it seemed that the Takegawa could have claimed victory at Kanegawa. However, Ujinao's men had recovered and regrouped, and, enjoying their vast numerical superiority, were able to annihilate Kazumasu's forces.
Oh,
As for the
dang.
man himself, he managed to escape and even secure safe passage from Masayuki, reaching Nagashima in Issei in the end. As we have already mentioned, the Hojo were not the only major power that wanted to take over the former Takeda clan. In the north, Uesugi Kage Ketsu was also making plans of his own, and Masayuki had acted in his name, though it should be noted that Masayuki was mostly acting for his own interests.
Yeah, I
After the
bet.
Honoji incident, Kage Ketsu was in a very precarious position, facing invasions from 3 Oda generals, Shibata Katsuie, Mori Nageyoshi, and Kazumasu. But Nobunaga's death had forced his generals to call back their armies, and gave Kagekatsu the opportunity to muster his own troops and move south into northern Shinano. From there, Kagekatsu captured Kaizu Castle and attacked Fukashi, the seat of Kiso Yoshimasa, who was driven away and joined the Hojo forces. By that time, the Hojo had largely secured Kozuke province, with Hojo Ujikuni capturing Numata Castle and constructing another fortress near Iwabitsu to prevent Masayuki from moving to join Kagekatsu. On the 27th, Masayuki, pressed by the Hojo troops and having served Kagekatsu for 2 long weeks, decided to jump ship and defected to Ujimasa's side. As such, the Hojo forces headed northwest to prevent the Uesugi army from conquering the entirety of Shinano. Crossing the Usui Pass, Ujinao took Komoro Castle from Nobushige, who managed to escape and retreated to another defensive position. On the 2nd of August, the two sides met at Kawanakajima, the site where Takeda Shingen and Uesugi Kenshin had fought so many times in the past. This time, however, there would be no battle. After staring at each other menacingly, the Hojo army turned around and headed toward
He's just standing there menacingly.
the south to meet Tokugawa Ieyasu, who had invaded Kai with a great force. Diplomacy would settle the differences between the Hojo and the Uesugi, as 2 weeks later they would reach a peace deal, by which Kagekatsu received 4 districts in northern Shinano and promised not to harass the Hojo while they fought Ieyasu.
Alright, I'm gonna end the episode right here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow when part 6? Bye everyone.